Hello, my name is Joshua Rudd with Ruddshomefarm, and today we're going to answer the question, is hydroponics better than soil? If you like this content, like and subscribe. Also, check out the links in below to get your free checklist and 11-step guide to get into hydroponics and grow your own food. If you like any of the equipment or tools that I use, they're all available and to look at and to purchase through my website in the links below. Let's get into it. All right, so too long didn't read. The answer to the question, is hydroponics better than soil, is it depends, right? So there are a lot of situations where hydroponics is far superior than soil. We're talking about outside soil. We're not talking pots and stuff like that. We're talking about out in the ground, outside. And there's other certain situations where soil is better. So let's go over what are the strengths of hydroponics. All right, so number one, you get over a 30% growing speed and yield because roots don't need to search for nutrients and or root around in the dirt for what they need. So all the nutrients is applied directly to the roots. It's very quick growing crops and plants. The elimination of most soil-borne pests like gnats, that was the number one reason why I changed to hydroponics, is because I could not stand the number of gnats. Neither could I do anything to get rid of them. I'll put up a picture real quick of my soil system. I thought I could just go ahead and have a bunch of soil pots in my basement, and then within a few weeks there were hundreds of thousands of gnats everywhere. It was terrible. I hated it. And so I switched to hydroponics. They're all gone now. All right, so 90% efficiency of water. Like all the water that you spray outside goes to the earth, and then you waste it. I would say it disappears forever, but it's like it recycles. It goes down into the ground, and then there's a water table and the whole underground system of rivers and stuff like that. But I mean, as far as it getting sprayed into the water and being used by the plants that you planted it for, it's not as efficient as hydroponics. All right, so hydroponics can be grown anywhere. So it can, and in any container. Kind of like soil, but water works a little bit different. So awesome. One of my favorite things about hydroponics is there's never any weeds to pluck. Everything is in a container, everything's all controlled, never any weeds, no hands and knees and plucking for hours. I've done that and I hate it. All right, so those are the great things about hydroponics. Now, where do hydroponics struggle? Some very significant things. All right, so the number one issue with hydroponics is that there's less support because of the roots are suspended in water. Okay, so that's your number one reason. That means that it limits the size of the plant that you can grow because the roots will always be dangling in the water and not in the earth and locking it in. So tall growing trees, big bushes and stuff like that, they'll have a lack of plant support systems if the roots are mostly hanging in the water. Also, requires more equipment to maintain. You need nutrients solutions, you need reservoirs, you got to clean it. There's a lot more chemicals that are involved in making the nutrient solution safe for the plant, and a lot less than natural stuff from the ground. Hydroponic failure is a major issue. So if it doesn't rain outside for a couple of days, the plants will be fine. But if your reservoirs run dry in your hydroponic system, within 8 hours, your plants will be completely dead. It's like just completely kaput. So there's a lot less room for error than outside, and a lot more forgiving in certain conditions outside. It's also not easy to scale. So if you were to plant an acre worth of any sort of crop, you could just plant outside, put it in the ground, do mass fertilizing and stuff like that. I honestly think that's the number one barrier for hydroponics to go, mainstream and become the main way of growing, is because each plant needs their own reservoir and each plant needs to be taken care of individually. Whereas in a regular farm, you could sow on masser scales, and there's nothing really preventing scaling of that. Another issue is conditions sway rapidly in the nutrients. So soil is a buffer. So the pH in the soil can't swing back and forth. The amount of water doesn't always completely dry up very quickly. But the conditions in the hydroponic system can change rapidly. You could lose power, and then your flowing system would stop flowing and giving nutrients to your plants. Within a couple hours, your plants are dead. So long-term crops are kind of a no-no with hydroponics. I'm talking long-term like an apple tree, trees and bushes, lavender, plants that are meant to be there for years and years and years and stuff like that. Because if you were to have any sort of system failure, any sort of wrong issue one time, you just wasted all that growth. Whereas outside is more forgiving. All right, so conclusion. There are a lot of plants that thrive and benefit from hydroponics. Here are some of them. They are quick crops that are usually annual. That means they grow once and then they're done. So that's lettuce, kale, spinach, arugula, strawberries, tomatoes, peppers, and the like. We do tomatoes and peppers are kind of like, you know, the higher end, you know, the more advanced growing. Like I'm growing some tomatoes here. I'm still trying to figure out why, you know, the finer details and making sure the flowers are just right and they're all pollinated and stuff like that. So, but growing large plants like bushes, trees, biannual veggies like onions are a biannual crop. That means you plant it 1 year, it grows for a year, and then you harvest the next year. That means you have to keep your hydroponic system consistent for 2 years straight, which is, you know, it might be difficult. You know, for advanced growers, you could do that. You could get a system going and a routine going, but, you know, one mistake, you go on vacation, you don't put enough water in there, you come back, it's all dead. So, why do I use hydroponics? I think my number one reason why I use it, I told you before in the video, is I hate the bugs. Those little gnats were an absolute eyesore and a pain in my eyes. And the second reason, it was I grow indoors. I no longer have a plot outside, so I'm growing everything in my basement using potting soil. So I couldn't really figure out how to give the plants the correct nutrients and not too much, not too little. And so it's awesome just to be able to measure out exactly how much I'm putting in, how much water. You know, with the soil system, you're putting capfuls of little beads of fertilizer, and if you put a little bit too many beads, you know, you ruin your plants, and not enough beads and nothing's growing, and then you have to worry about the water, the dampness, and stuff like that. I'm actually surprised at how efficient the water intake is for the plants. It's not really damp and moldy and mildewy, but when I was watering a bunch of soil all day down here in the basement, just imagine all these trays of pots of soil, and I'm watering and spilling water everywhere to make sure everything's deeply watered and stuff like that. It was a damp, dank, dark mess. But with hydroponics, everything's in a sealed container. So that's a sealed container right there. Well, you know, the water stays in there until they're done germinating. So a lot less evaporation than that. So hope you liked the video. If you liked it, subscribe, and I'll see you. And I hope I answered that question. It depends. And I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.